In 213 to 212 BCE, at Xianyang, the first emperor was finishing his unification and wanted one law, one script, one ideology. Confucian scholars kept quoting older texts to question Qin conquest and centralized power. Reports from local officials named these scholars troublemaking teachers. The punishment in general was life burial for those who refused to renounce, with others sent to forced labor. Prisoners were listed on wooden slips fitted with wooden collars and marched to prepared pits where the charges were read before earth was shoved down in measured layers. It happened to this group because the court saw their teaching as a political threat to standardization and succession. The aftermath was fear-driven silence in the schools and tighter controls of texts across the empire. In 238 BCE, the teenage king Zhang faced a dangerous succession scandal. Lao Ai, the queen's mother favorite, forged seals, bribed guards, and tried to raise troops to set up a rival court. The plot risked splitting the state at the moment Qin was arming for wider wars. The punishment in general was tearing apart by chariots. Ropes were tied from each limb to separate chariots, and on the signal, drivers pulled while a herald pronounced the crime and spearmen kept order. It happened to Lao Ai because he was plotting to replace the throne. The sentence warned generals and ministers that even palace favorite would face the harshest law if they challenged the throne. In 99 BCE, at the Han Palace in Chang'an, historian Sima Qian defended General Li Ling after a defeat by nomad forces. The emperor read his report as an insult to the throne and a defense of failure. The punishment in general was gongxing, or castration, one of the old punishments for severe offense against imperial authority. It was handled like a state medical procedure. The prisoner fixed to a wooden frame, the body washed, basic pain relief provided, and each step recorded by clerks. Afterward came long recovery, public shame, and loss of rank and funeral rites. It happened to Sima Qian because he stand up against the court and could not afford the fine to commute his sentence. On January 9, 1283, in the Mongol Yuan capital, poet and statesman Wen Tianxiang faced sentence. He had refused repeated offers from Kublai Khan to serve the new regime, writing that integrity outweighed survival. The punishment in general was beheading at a market ground site. The process was formal. Kneeling down, hear the charge, the magistrate lift a command table, a drum sound, and the state executioner's sword strikes. A sign lists name and crime, the coroner certifies, and the Yamen files its report. It happened to Wen because Yuan needed to show that resistance had truly ended and the court law now truly legitimate. In 1380, at Nanjing, the founding Ming Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang suspected Councillor Hu Weiyong of building a private network across the tax, transport, and military offices through bribery, patronage, and possibly talks that could endanger the throne. The case was exposed as interrogation named hundreds of associates. The punishment in general was yaozhan, or cutting at the waist, on a raised platform for the ultimate disgrace. The body was tied at elbows and knees, with the torso held rigid. The verdict was read, a broad cleaver-like blade delivered the sentence. Afterward came confiscation, exiles, and a wave of posted orders. It happened to Hu because emperor chose spectacle to break faction and centralized powers. In 1402, the Yongle emperor seized power from his nephew and needed the scholars to bless his rule. Scholars Fang Xiaoru refused to draft the accession proclamation, arguing that usurpation violated moral order. The punishment in general was Ju, or collective punishment, to 10 degrees of kin. First came deep paperwork sweep, family trees copied, household marked, student and close retainers added. Then orders for execution, exiles, and seizures were recorded line by line. It happened to Fang and his circle because the new regime wanted a deterrent that reached beyond one man to the social web that made him influential. In 1510, eunuch Liu Jin had turned access to the emperor into a machine for selling offices and punishing critics. A coalition of censors and sidelined minister finally toppled him. The punishment in general was Lingchi, or slow slicing, the supreme penalty in the late imperial law. The condemned was fixed upright to a wooden frame with wrist and chest bound. A magistrate presided, a clerk locked stages, and a coroner observed. Assistant handled waters, clothes, and blades. Drums and gongs set paces, and placards or signs spread the lesson. It happened to Liu Jin because the court wanted public cleansing after years of predation. The sentence reset the political balance for a time and reminded officials that the palace inner circle was not untouchable. In 1799, after Qianlong Emperor died, the Jiangqing Emperor took full control. The Manchu noble named He Shen fell overnight. Trial exposes embezzlement and patronage on a shocking scale. The punishment in general was strangulation by silken cord in a private compound. The condemned kneeled or sat. Attendants looped the cord behind the neck and drew it tight on the signal. The coroner checked pulse. A brief report closed the case. It happened to He Shen because the new emperor needed to reclaim authority without a bloody public scene that might destabilize the capital. In 1900, as foreign army moved toward Beijing during the Boxer Crisis, Consort Jen clashed with Empress widow Qi Shi. The punishment in general was drowning, a secret palace order carried out by eunuch at an inner court well. She was led under guard, a short command was read, the act was done. Staff then reported completed to the inner office. It happened because the palace feared that reform voice like Jen might bring outside sympathy and weaken control during invasion. 1625, late Ming politics turned fierce. Donglin reformer Yang Lian wrote a strong report against the eunuch Wei Zhongshan, accusing him of heavy corruption and control over offices. Wei seizes Yang and hid the case from open court. The punishment in general was beating to death in prison. Guards made the prisoner kneel with wrists tied and struck with heavy staff while a clerk counted the blows. There was no open execution ground, only a cell and a record book. It happened to Yang because Wei wanted to break the scholar group without a public trial. The messages to officials was simple. Sharp words on paper could end in a locked room, not in a debate.